So, good morning, everyone. My name is Arafat. I teach history on the textbook platform. So, in this session, let us discuss a very important topic of the ancient Indian history. That is, uh, that is Ashoka's Dhamma. A minute. So, once again, my name is Arafat. I teach history on the textbook platform. So, in this session, let us discuss a very important topic of the ancient Indian history, that is Ashoka's Dhamma. So, this topic is important both for prelims as well as for mains. So, there is a possibility of a question coming from this topic in this year mains examination as well. So, let us discuss a few details, various aspects of this topic, that is Ashoka's Dhamma. So the point is, Ashoka uh, is a Mauryan ruler. He belonged to the Mauryan dynasty. So the Mauryan Empire ruled India between 321 BC to about 185 BC. So 321 BC to 185 BC is the time period of the rule of the Mauryas. So Ashoka undoubtedly is one of the greatest Mauryan rulers. In fact, Ashoka is also regarded as one of the greatest rulers of the world. So basically, Ashoka happened to be a Mauryan ruler, but Ashoka is considered as one of the greatest rulers of the world. The point is why? Why is he called the greatest ruler? Is it because he ruled over a very vast area? Is that the reason why he is called as the greatest ruler? The answer is no. Of course, it is true that Ashoka ruled over a very extensive area. He ruled almost over the entire Indian subcontinent, leaving the southernmost tip of India. So, except for, say, the present Indian states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, almost the whole part of the present day India, the whole of the present day Pakistan and Afghanistan, the whole of present day Bangladesh were also under the control of Ashoka. So Ashoka ruled over a very extensive area. The point is, why is he called the greatest one? Is it because he ruled over a very extensive area? The answer is no. He is regarded as the greatest ruler for his policy of Ashoka is regarded as the greatest ruler in the history of the world, not because he ruled over an extensive area, not because of his military victories, but for his policy of Dhamma. So the point is, the term Dhamma was frequently used by Ashoka in his inscriptions. The term Dhamma is not given by the present day scholars. The term Dhamma was used frequently by Ashoka himself in his inscriptions. So the point is, let us understand the meaning of the term Dhamma. Let us also understand in what context Ashoka used the term Dhamma. What did Ashoka meant by Dhamma? The point. So the point is, let me repeat. The topic of today's discussion is Ashoka's Dhamma. I told you Ashoka happened to be Mauryan ruler, and he is regarded as one of the greatest rulers in the world. He is considered as one of the greatest rulers in the world, not because he won great military victories. Of course, there are military victories to his credit, but the point is that's not the reason why he is called as the greatest. He is regarded as the greatest ruler of the world, because of his policy of Dhamma. What is this Dhamma? Why did he promote Dhamma? Let us take a look at the policy of Dhamma of Ashoka. What is Dhamma? So basically, Dhamma is a Prakrit word. Dhamma, the Prakrit word. Prakrit was a language that was spoken in India during the ancient times. In fact, Prakrit was an offshoot of a Sanskrit language. Basically, Prakrit is an offshoot of the Sanskrit language. So, Prakrit was spoken in India during the ancient times. Prakrit was the language of the common people, whereas the Sanskrit language was the language of the elite sections of the society. So the point which I'm trying to convey is Prakrit was a language that was spoken in India during the ancient times. Basically, the term Dhamma is a Prakrit word, and Dhamma is an equivalent of a Sanskrit term called Dharma. The Prakrit word is a Sanskrit equivalent of a term called Dharma. So the point is, we frequently use the term Dharma in various contexts with various meanings. We frequently use the term Dharma, but in various contexts, it has various meanings, different meanings. So, for example, we use the term Dharma to refer to religion. So, for example, Hindu Dharma. Hope I am clear. So, the point is, the term Dharma has different meanings when it is used in different contexts. So, for example, the term Dharma is used to refer to religion, such as say Hindu religion, Hindu Dharma. The term Dharma is also used to refer to righteousness. The term Dharma is also used to refer to ethical and moral life. The term Dhamma is also used to refer to ethical and moral life. So the point is, in what context did Ashoka use the term Dhamma? Point is, I told you we tried understanding the meaning of the term Dhamma. Dhamma, I told you, is a Sanskrit equivalent of a term called Dharma. What is Dharma? The term Dharma is used in different contexts with the different meanings. In one context, the term Dharma is used to refer to religion. In another context, the term Dharma is used to refer to righteousness. It is also used to refer to moral life, etc. That's the point. But in what context did Ashoka use the term Dhamma? Is the point which we need to be understanding. So the point is, if we the point is to have a better understanding of the meaning of the term Dhamma as used by Ashoka, it is very much important for us to understand, read and understand the inscriptions of Ashoka. Let me repeat this point once again. I told you it is Ashoka who frequently used the term Dharma in his inscriptions. It was Ashoka basically who used the term Dharma. And if we want to have a proper understanding of the meaning of the term Dharma, we should first read the inscriptions of Ashoka so that we will understand the context in which Ashoka used the term Dharma. That's the point. So the point is, let us take a look at the inscriptions of Ashoka. Let us go through the inscriptions of Ashoka. Let us make an attempt to understand the inscriptions of Ashoka so that we will understand the context in which Ashoka used the term Dhamma. So let us understand the contents of Ashoka's inscriptions are basically contents of Ashoka's inscriptions are basically contents of Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on tolerance of people and their ideas. Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on the tolerance of people and their ideas. So basically, Ashoka wanted the people belonging to different religions to tolerate the others. Ashoka wanted people following the Hindu religion to tolerate the people of other religions and vice versa. So basically, Ashoka wanted the tolerance of people tolerance of the people. Uh, Ashoka wanted the tolerance of people belonging to one religion towards the people of other religions. Ashoka basically believed that the mutual tolerance between the people would ultimately result in the establishment of peace and stability within the empire. Let me repeat this point once again. The point is, Ashoka believed that the mutual tolerance between the people belonging to different religions would ultimately result in the establishment of peace and stability throughout the empire. That was the first point which was emphasized by Ashoka. So basically, we are now trying to understand the meaning of the term Dhamma uh, as used by Ashoka. So Ashoka, in his inscriptions, he emphasized on tolerance of the people. It was the first aspect which was emphasized by Ashoka. Second, Ashoka, in his inscriptions, also emphasized on considerate and kind behavior. Ashoka, in his inscriptions, also emphasized on considerate and kind behavior. Ashoka, in his inscriptions, wanted the people to be kind enough in their treatment of their subordinates, like the slaves and servants. Ashoka, in his inscriptions, wanted the people of his kingdom to be kind in their treatment of their subordinates, like that of the slaves and the servants. So basically, Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on considerate behavior towards the subordinates, kind behavior towards the subordinates. So that was the second aspect emphasized by Ashoka as a part of his Dhamma. Third, Ashoka in his inscriptions also emphasized on generosity. Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on charity. He emphasized on the aspect of generosity. Ashoka in his inscriptions wanted the people to be generous enough. Ashoka in his inscriptions wanted the people to be generous enough in making donations to the saints of different religions, such as, say, Brahmanical religion, which is basically the ancient name for the Hindu religion, and Shramanical religion, that basically means the heterodox religion, is basically the heterodox religion. Let me repeat this point once again. Ashoka, in his inscriptions, also emphasized on charity. He encouraged people to be generous enough in making donations to the saints, the monks of both Hindu religion as well as heterodox religions such as Buddhism, Jainism. He wanted people to be very generous in making donations to the monks of different religions, not of a particular religion. At a point. That was another aspect emphasized by Ashoka. So generosity is another aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. Then Ashoka, as a part of his Dhamma, also emphasized on obedience. Ashoka wanted the people to be obedient towards their elders, parents, and teachers. He also wanted people to fulfill their duties towards the elders, their parents, and teachers. So the point is, let me repeat, obedience was another aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka wanted the people to be obedient towards their elders. He wanted people to be obedient towards their parents and teachers. At a point, he wanted people to fulfill their duties towards the elders. This was another important aspect emphasized by Ashoka in his Dhamma. This was another aspect emphasized by Ashoka in his Dhamma. Ashoka in his Dhamma also emphasized on truthfulness. Ashoka wanted the people to speak truth all the time. Ashoka wanted people to abstain from cheating. abstain from speaking false. At the point, false speeches. So the point is, Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on truthfulness. He emphasized on people speaking truth always, all the time. That is, he emphasized on people speaking truth all the time. He he encouraged people to abstain from cheating. He encouraged people to abstain from uh, making false speeches, etc. So this was another very important aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka's Dhamma also emphasized Ashoka in his Dhamma also emphasized on welfare activities. He emphasized on welfare activities. Ashoka claimed that he himself was involved in numerous welfare activities such as the construction of roads, planting of trees, digging up of wells, construction of hospitals, both to humans as well as animals, that is, veterinary hospitals, etc. So the point is, Ashoka, as a part of his policy of Dhamma, also emphasized on welfare activities. He emphasized on welfare activities. Ashoka uh, claimed that ever since he started practicing Dhamma, that is, Ashoka claimed that ever since he started practicing Dhamma, he began taking up numerous welfare activities such as laying of roads, uh, the planting of trees, the construction of hospitals, etc., etc. He also encouraged people to follow in his footsteps. He also encouraged people to do such uh, to carry out such welfare activities in their own right. In their own right. That's my point. So this was another important aspect emphasized by Ashoka in his Dhamma. Seventh, Ashoka in his inscriptions also emphasized on moderation in spending. Moderation in Ashoka in his inscriptions encouraged people to adopt a simple lifestyle. Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on people uh, leading a simple life. He wanted people to avoid unnecessary expenditure. He wanted Ashoka uh, wanted people to avoid unnecessary expenditure. The point. He generally wanted people not to have desire to accumulate wealth beyond a particular point. Point is, Ashoka in his inscriptions also emphasized on moderation in spending. He wanted people to adopt a simple lifestyle. He wanted people to lead a simple life. Wanted people to avoid unnecessary spending. At a point, he also wanted people not to have desire to accumulate wealth beyond a particular point. Was another aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. So Ashoka's Dhamma also includes rejection of rituals. So during the ancient times, uh, uh, various rituals were carried out, and particularly the rituals uh, were the emphasis on rituals was even more in the Brahmanical religion. Point is, during the ancient times, various rituals were carried out, and particularly there was a lot of emphasis given to rituals, particularly in the Brahmanical religion, that is the ancient Hindu religion. So basically, as a part of the rituals during the ancient times, animal slaughter was a quite common practice. As a part of the rituals, animal sacrifice was quite a common practice. But the point is, uh, the Ashoka was of the view that these rituals and sacrifices, which were performed in the name of pleasing gods, were useless and meaningless. Point is, during the ancient times, various rituals were practiced, and animal sacrifice was uh, quite a common practice during the ancient times, particularly in the Brahmanical religion. But the point is, Ashoka was of the view that the practice of rituals, particularly the practice of animal sacrifice, uh, was useless and meaningless ritual. So therefore, uh, as a part of his policy of Dhamma, he passed orders to ban he passed orders and banned animal sacrifice, particularly animal sacrifice which were carried out in the name of God. At my point. So the point is, he did not ban the sacrifice of animals for food. He banned the sacrifice of animals as a part of ritual. So he did as a part of his policy of Dhamma. So the point is, rejection of rituals is another aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka, in his inscriptions, uh, wanted people not to give much of an importance. He wanted people to desist from uh, the animal sacrifice. He was of the view that animal sacrifice was useless and meaningless. Therefore, he banned that practice throughout his kingdom. This he did as a part of his policy of Dhamma. Then Ashoka's policy of Dhamma also emphasized on non-violence. This is in fact the most important aspect emphasized by Ashoka as a part of his Dhamma. So Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on non-violence. Ashoka uh, claimed that non-violence can be practiced in two different. Ashoka claimed that non-violence can be practiced in two different ways. One was by giving up war, that is, by saying no to war. Second, by restricting the slaughter of animals, particularly even the animals for food. Let me repeat this point once again. Ashoka, as a part of his policy of Dhamma, emphasized on non-violence. Ashoka believed that non-violence can be practiced in two different ways. One way was by giving up war, is by saying no to war. Second was by restricting the slaughter of the animals. Ashoka, let me explain the first point here. Ashoka, in his inscriptions, claimed that ever since he started practicing the policy of Dhamma, I repeat, Ashoka, in his inscriptions, claimed that ever since he started practicing the policy of Dhamma, he stopped fighting wars. In fact, he gave up the policy of Bheri Ghosha and adopted the policy of Dhamma Ghosha. Let me explain this point once again. The point is, Ashoka claimed that Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on non-violence. Non-violence is an important aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka claimed that non-violence can be practiced in two different ways: is by giving up war, by restricting the slaughter of the animals. So Ashoka basically claimed that ever since he started practicing the policy of Dhamma, he gave up Bheri Ghosha and adopted Dhamma Ghosha. Bheri Ghosha means uh, beating the drums of war. Basically, these are the drums uh, that are played before the start of the war. Basically, Ashoka claimed that ever since he started practicing the policy of Dhamma, he gave up the policy of war and adopted the policy of peace. Policy of peace. This was another important aspect of Ashoka's Dhamma. Told you second aspect of violence. The second aspect emphasized by Ashoka as a part of his policy of non-violence was to restrict the slaughter of animals. So anyway, Ashoka banned the uh, ritual sacrifices. Ashoka he banned ritual sacrifices of animals. But besides banning of ritual sacrifices, particularly the animal sacrifice, Ashoka also sought to regulate the slaughter of animals for food. The last point, we have seen that Ashoka banned slaughter of animals. as part of rituals. But Ashoka also sought to regulate, he sought to restrict the slaughter of animals for food. The point. So, by doing so, Ashoka sought to recognize the rights of the animals. At the point, Ashoka believed that not just the humans, the animals also have the right to live. And having recognized this, Ashoka sought to protect the animals. It was as a part of his policy of protecting animals. First, he banned the slaughter of animals for rituals. Second, he also sought to restrict the slaughter of animals at the point. Ashoka, in one of his inscriptions, Ashoka claimed that uh, he had instructed his officers to limit the number of animals killed in the royal kitchen for food. Basically, in one of his inscriptions, Ashoka claimed that he had instructed his officers to limit the the number of animals killed in the royal kitchen for food. At a point. So basically, he did not put a complete ban on slaughter of animals for food. He sought to restrict their killing. But as far as the killing of animals for rituals is concerned, he had put a complete ban on it. That's the point. So the policy of non-violence was also an important policy of his Dhamma. That's the point. So let us take a look at the various points emphasized by Ashoka as a part of his Dhamma from the beginning. Ashoka basically, his inscriptions emphasized on tolerance of people. That is, he wanted people belonging to one religion or a particular religion to have tolerance to the people of other religions. Because Ashoka believed that mutual tolerance would result in peace and stability throughout the empire. Then Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on kindness. The second point, Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on kindness. At a point, he wanted people to be kind towards their slaves and servants. Third, Ashoka in his inscription emphasized on generosity. He wanted people to generously make donations to the monks of different religions, as well as the needy, as well as the needy. Then Ashoka in his inscriptions also emphasized on obedience to elders, parents, and teachers. Ashoka in his inscriptions emphasized on truthful behavior, truthfulness. Is he wanted people to speak truth all the time, wanted people to abstain from uh, abstain from cheating, abstain from speaking false. At the point, all these were emphasized by Ashoka. Then Ashoka, as a part of his policy of Dhamma, also emphasized on welfare activities. Then he emphasized on moderation in spending. He wanted people to limit their spending. He wanted people to lead a very simple life. Then Ashoka, eighth point, he, as a part of his policy of Dhamma, rejected rituals. He, in fact, banned the slaughter of animals as a part of rituals. And finally, Ashoka, as a part of his policy of Dhamma, emphasized on non-violence. So these were the things which Ashoka emphasized as a part of his policy of Dhamma at the point. Then what steps did Ashoka take to spread Dhamma? Ashoka, during his lifetime, he dedicated his life, Ashoka in fact dedicated his life for spreading of Dhamma. But what steps did Ashoka take to spread Dhamma? The point. So the point is, he took a number of steps. One, he began issuing edicts. Edicts, these are basically, edicts means royal orders. Royal orders. So basically, Ashoka started issuing his royal orders, and these royal orders were issued on the stones. We call them as. So basically, the edicts are one category of. So basically, Ashoka started issuing edicts on the stones, and by doing so, Ashoka wanted to have a direct communication. He got his inscriptions issued on stones, and these inscriptions were issued strategically important locations. And by doing so, by issuing these edicts, by issuing this category of inscriptions, this type of inscriptions, Ashoka wanted to establish a direct contact with. He wanted to bring to the notice of the people his Dhamma, and to to bring to the notice of the people his Dhamma, he began issuing his inscriptions in prominent locations. The first step taken by Ashoka to spread Dhamma is that he began issuing edicts. Second, second step taken by Ashoka was that he established a new institution of the Dhamma Mahamatras. So basically, Dhamma Mahamatras were high level officers appointed by Ashoka. The, the duty that was assigned to the Dhamma Mahamatras was to take the 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 Dhamma of Ashoka to every nook and corner of the country. Let me repeat this point once again. The second step taken by Ashoka to spread his Dhamma was to establish the institution of Dhamma Mahamatras. Who are these Dhamma Mahamatras? Dhamma Mahamatras are basically high level officers appointed by Ashoka throughout his kingdom. So the task that was assigned to the Dhamma Mahamatras was to preach Ashoka's Dhamma, the people of the Mauryan Empire. The duty that was given to the Dhamma Mahamatras was to take Ashoka's Dhamma to every nook and corner of the point. So basically, these officers went from town to town, they went from village to village, and started preaching or propagating Ashoka's Dhamma among the common people. So this was the second important step taken by Ashoka to spread his Dhamma among people. Then he himself began undertaking tours, call them as royal tours. So Ashoka undertook royal tours by himself to promote his Dhamma. So Ashoka in his inscriptions claimed that earlier he was busy involved in Vihara Yatras, that is the hunting expeditions. Let me repeat. Ashoka in his inscriptions claimed that initially he was involved in Vihara Yatras, that is hunting expeditions. But Ashoka claimed that ever since he started practicing Dhamma, he gave up Vihara Yatras and started Dhamma Yatras. That is the tours which he undertook to promote his Dhamma. So let me repeat this point once again. Second, the third step taken by Ashoka to spread his Dhamma is he himself began undertaking tours. He began visiting uh, uh, different parts of his kingdom, and uh, he began to propagate his Dhamma among the people on his own. At that point, Ashoka in his inscriptions claimed that earlier he was very busy involved in Vihara Yatras, that is hunting expeditions. But ever since he started practicing Dhamma, he gave up Vihara Yatras and started Dhamma Yatras. This was another aspect emphasized by Ashoka in his. So these three were the prominent steps taken by Ashoka to spread his Dhamma. In fact, Ashoka even said to have asked his officers to undertake the tours by themselves to promote Ashoka's Dhamma among the people. He even said to have instructed his officers to carry out or undertake royal, the same purpose. That was another important step taken by Ashoka. The point is, are Dhamma and Buddhism one and the same? The point is, there is a debate among the historians that Dhamma, which was propagated by Ashoka, and Buddhism are not two different things but one and the same. This entire debate started because Ashoka was a Buddhist religion. Let me repeat this point once again. Ashoka was a Buddhist by religion, and therefore some scholars began to argue that what Ashoka preached his preached as his Dhamma is nothing but the teachings of Buddhism. Ashoka was a Buddhist, and therefore some scholars began to argue that what Ashoka had preached as his Dhamma is not much different from the teachings of. So basically, some scholars began to argue that there is not much of a difference between his Dhamma, that is Ashoka's Dhamma, and the teachings of Buddhism. But a majority of the scholars in the present times have refused to uh, have now believe a majority of the scholars in the present times believe that though Ashoka was a Buddhist by religion, what he preached as his Dhamma, that is Ashoka's Dhamma, was not the same as the teachings of. Basically, majority of the scholars in the present times believe that Ashoka's Dhamma and the teachings of Buddhism, though there might be some similarities between them, are not one and the same. Is the stand taken by a majority of the scholars of the present time. The point. So, why do they say so? What points do they have in their support to say that Ashoka's Dhamma and teachings of Buddhism are not one and the same? What points do they have in their support? The point is, let us take a look at these points uh, that support the argument that the teachings of Buddhism and Ashoka's Dhamma are not one and the same. Take a look at the first point. The first point is the institution of Dhamma Mahamatras. The point is, Dhamma Mahamatras were a class of officers appointed during the time of Ashoka to propagate Ashoka's Dhamma. Dhamma Mahamatras were a class of officers appointed by Ashoka to propagate his Dhamma. So the point is, if Ashoka indeed was propagating Buddhism or the teachings of Buddhism, right? If indeed Ashoka was propagating the teachings of or the 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 let me repeat, if Ashoka was indeed propagating Buddhism, there was absolutely no need for him to appoint a new class officers called Dhamma Mahamatras. This was because already the institution of Sangha exists in Buddhism. This was because the institution of Sangha exists in Buddhism. Sangha is basically a congregation of monks and nuns in Buddhism. Sangha is basically the congregation of the monks and nuns in Buddhism, and the Sangha was very actively involved in propagating the teachings of Buddha. Let me repeat, Sangha was very much actively involved in propagating the teachings of Buddha. It was very much actively involved in promoting Buddhism. So the point is, if indeed Ashoka was propagating Buddhism, if that be the case, there should there was no need for Ashoka to start the institution of the Dhamma Mahamatras. That's the point. Instead, Ashoka could have used the services of Sangha to promote Buddhism. To promote. That's the point. So the very fact that Ashoka did not take the help of Sangha, rather he began appointing a new class of officers called Dhamma Mahamatras, makes it very clear that what Ashoka promoted as his Dhamma, though there might be some similarities with the teachings of Buddhism, are basically not one and the same, both are two different things, is an argument presented by a majority of the scholars. Is my point clear? The whole point which I'm trying to convey is we are now trying to understand a debate, that is whether Dhamma, Ashoka's Dhamma, the teachings of Buddhism, one and the same or not. The point is, most of the scholars believe that both are not one and the same, both are two different things. This is the stand taken by a majority of the scholars in the present time. So, in support of their argument, they have given the first point, that is the institution of Dhamma Mahamatra. Come to the second point, Ashoka's chakra. So we see Ashoka chakra comprising of 24 spokes, whereas in Buddhism also there is a Dhamma chakra consisting of only 8 spokes. So the 8 spokes in Buddhist chakra stand for the eightfold path or Ashtangika Marga. So the point is, if Ashoka was indeed propagating Buddhism, there was no need for him to use a different chakra. He should have he could have used the same already existing eight spoke chakra of Buddhism. There should have been no need for him to use a dharma chakra with 24. The very fact that Ashoka used a 24 chakra, a 24 spoke chakra, not eight spoke chakra of Buddhism, indicate that what Ashoka propagated as his Dhamma is completely different from Ashoka's, is completely different from Buddhist Dhamma. That's the point. Is completely different from Buddhist Dhamma or of Buddhism. The point. So the point is, majority of the scholars in the present times now believe that what Ashoka preached as his Dhamma is completely different from the teaching. Of course, there might be some similarities, but both are not one and the same. Then why did Ashoka propagate Dhamma? What was the need for him to propagate? Why did Ashoka start propagating Dhamma? That's the question. So the point is, perhaps Ashoka was the first ruler who began to face the challenge of diversity. Ashoka perhaps was the first ruler who began to face the challenge of diversity. Told you, Ashoka ruled over a very extensive area. His kingdom, his empire was spread almost entire subcontinent, Indian subcontinent. So his kingdom comprised of people belonging to different religions. So there were people practicing Vedic religion, that is the ancient Hindu religion. There were also people practicing Buddhism. There were also people practicing Jainism. There were also people practicing other religions, some minor religions, for example, say Ajivika, Charvaka. Ajivika and Charvaka were religions were in existence here during ancient times. So basically, Ashoka ruled in the 3rd century BC. Ashoka ruled in the 3rd century BC, and Ashoka perhaps was the first ruler who began to face the problem of diversity. He ruled over a very diverse region. He ruled over a region which was inhabited by people belonging to diverse religions, such as the Vedic religion, Buddhism, Jainism, etc. So he also ruled over a territory uh, where there were economic differences between the people. That is, he ruled over a territory in which there were people belonging to different economic strata. There were people who were rich, there were people who belonged to the middle classes, there were also people who were poor. So he also ruled over a territory in which there were people speaking diverse languages. Say, for example, there were people speaking Sanskrit, there were people speaking Prakrit, there were people speaking another language called Pali, there were people speaking Greek. For example, in the present day Afghanistan, the Greek settlements had by this time come into existence. That is by the time of Ashoka. numerous Greek settlements had come into existence in present day Afghanistan. So in that region, Greek was spoken. The Greek language. So basically, Ashoka ruled over a territory in which there were people speaking diverse languages, such as Sanskrit, Pali, such as Prakrit, Greek, etc. So the whole point which I'm trying to convey is Ashoka was perhaps the first ruler who began to face the challenge of diversity, or he was perhaps the first ruler who began to face the challenge of ruling kingdom with great diversity. Diversity in terms of religions, diversity in terms of languages, diversity in terms of uh, diversity in terms of the financial status, the economic status, etc. etc. So the point is, Ashoka perhaps was the first ruler who began to face the challenge of diversity. And the point is, greater the diversity, greater is the scope for conflicts erupting in society. Greater the diversity, greater is the chances of greater are the chances of conflicts erupting in. So the point is, Ashoka was no ordinary ruler. Ashoka was ruling over the entire, almost entire Indian subcontinent. Ashoka also had a very large army under his control. It was a large army under the command and control of Ashoka. The point is, I just told you that he ruled over a very diverse territory. He began to face the problem of diversity. And I told you that greater the diversity, greater are the chances of conflicts erupting between different sections. But in case, even if there are conflicts, since Ashoka had a very large army under his control, he could have used his army to put down the conflict. Since Ashoka had a very large army, even if there are conflicts, Ashoka could have used his army to put down the conflict. The point is, many scholars believe that Ashoka never wanted to use force. To, many scholars believe that Ashoka perhaps never wanted to use force. Ashoka wanted the voluntary compliance of the people to the rules and regulations existing in the society. Many scholars believe that Ashoka wanted a voluntary compliance of the people to the rules and regulations existing. And many scholars believe that the policy of Dhamma propagated by Ashoka was an attempt by Ashoka to promote voluntary compliance of the people to the rules and regulations of the society existing in the society. Let me repeat this point once again. Ashoka perhaps wanted uh, Ashoka perhaps wanted a voluntary compliance of the people to the rules and regulations. Many scholars believe that the policy of Dhamma propagated by Ashoka was perhaps an attempt made by Ashoka to inculcate among the people uh, voluntary compliance, to inculcate a voluntary compliance to the rules and regulations. That's the point. So to make the people voluntarily follow the rules and regulations, perhaps for that reason, Ashoka started propagating his Dhamma. The whole point which I'm trying to convey is, why did Ashoka propagate Dhamma? Ashoka wanted people to voluntarily follow the rules and regulations. To make the people voluntarily follow the rules and regulations, Ashoka probably started propagating his Dhamma. Reason. That's the point. So now come to final point. What is Dhamma after all? What is Dhamma? So basically, I told you the term Dhamma is used in different contexts with different meanings. The term Dhamma is also used to refer to religion, is used to refer to righteousness, is also used to refer to moral and ethical life. But I told you it was Ashoka who himself used the term Dhamma frequently in his inscriptions. Then, what did Ashoka mean by Dhamma? Most scholars believe that Ashoka's Dhamma was a code of conduct. Most scholars believe that Ashoka's Dhamma was basically a code of conduct. It is basically a set of principles, a set of rules and regulations which Ashoka wanted all the people of his kingdom to follow. Ashoka's Dhamma is basically a code of conduct. Ashoka's Dhamma is basically a set of rules and regulations which Ashoka wanted all the people of his kingdom to follow. Ashoka believed that if all the people follow or stick to the rules and regulations, there would not be uh, scope for conflicts erupting in the society. And Ashoka possibly believed that if there are no conflicts in the society, to uh, it would allow him to rule over his kingdom without much difficulty. The point is, Ashoka might have introduced his Dhamma. Uh, Ashoka started propagating his Dhamma to encourage the people uh, to to comply with the rules and regulations. So the point is, what is Ashoka's Dhamma? Ashoka's Dhamma is basically code of conduct. It contains a set of rules and regulations which Ashoka wanted all the people of his kingdom to follow. Basically, Ashoka thought that if all the people comply to the rules and regulations, there would not be much of a trouble to him ruling his kingdom. To achieve that objective, to achieve that aim, Ashoka started propagating his Dhamma. So that's all about this topic. The topic we have seen, um, we have discussed the meaning of Dhamma. Then we have discussed the contents of Ashoka's Dhamma. Then third, we have discussed the steps taken by Ashoka to promote his Dhamma. Then we have also discussed the debate whether Ashoka's Dhamma and the teachings of Buddhism are one and the same. We have concluded by saying that though there might be some similarities between both of them, both are actually not one and the same, both are quite different. Point. Then we tried understanding why Ashoka started propagating his Dhamma. What was the need? Why did he start propagating Dhamma? That also we have seen. And finally, we have tried to understand the meaning of Ashoka's. Is Ashoka. Basically, Ashoka's Dhamma is a code of conduct. It contains a set of rules and regulations which Ashoka wanted all the people to follow. It is basically rules of Ashoka's Dhamma in simple can be called as rules of a social, can be defined as rules of a social. It's all about this topic. This topic is very, very important. It could be asked either for prelims, that is, it could be questions could be framed either in MCQ form. More importantly, this topic of Dhamma, it could be asked in. That's all for today. See you in the next.